you get in a relationship where this person has the audacity to be with you and still have the freedom to be with other people, but you can't do the same. You can't reprimand them. You can't even have a decent conversation with them. It got to a point where I was kind of not even allowed to say anything to him because, unopenga, literally. And because you're coming from this weak standpoint,
Hi everyone, welcome to another episode of Moments with Nyengeterai. I just want to say thank you again for subscribing. If you haven't subscribed, please do subscribe and become a part of this community. I also just want to say thank you for the questions that you've been asking me. And those of you who want me to do an interview by myself, I will do one where I talk about myself. But in the meantime, it's about my guests and the lessons that they bring onto the show. And today, I have another exciting young lady, and I think most of you will be so happy with her story and will learn a lot from her. Nicole, welcome.
Thank you. I'm actually pretty surprised that you said exciting guest. It's good to hear someone saying that I'm exciting, because I feel like in this digital age, it's so easy for someone to think lowly of themselves and feel like they're inadequate. So thank you for the compliment.
No, you are exciting. I always say, we always say that, life lessons are very important. And sometimes people don't have to go through certain things because someone else has already gone through it. So they already have a story. They already have a lesson. They already can teach us. So,
yeah.
And because of that, we all have, and I think a lot of people forget that, we all have something unique about ourselves. And that's why God brought us here. Everyone is unique and has some...
Exactly, yeah.
So Nicole, before you go any further, just let the audience know who you are, what you do. Who's Nicole?
Yeah, well, for starters, it feels nice to have someone call me Nicole.
Oh!
Because I say that because I'm in media. I'm a media personality. I call myself a media personality because I do so many things on different media platforms. I'm an Instagrammer, like a lot of people. I'm a social media content creator as well. I do have a podcast of my own, so I'm a podcaster in my other life, a radio personality, and a TV personality as well. So it's actually quite a lot that I do. So I decided to call myself a media personality. But so my followers know me as Queen Nicole, which is actually a nickname that I got from my dad growing up. I think he always had this thing of women empowerment. So to me, it's not something that I learned as an adult, but it's something that was ingrained in me when I was young. He always used to call me the queen. I'm the only girl in my family. I have 3 brothers, so I was the queen of the house.
I was about to say, is that why he called you queen?
I was always the queen. So when I got on radio, thinking of a name that would set me apart from everyone else, because already there was a Nikki on Star FM, and because I came on radio later than her, it obviously meant I couldn't call myself Nikki. So I decided, well, maybe I might as well just, let everyone else call me Queen Nicole like my dad used to. So that's where the name came from. But in my personal life, I think I'm quite an introvert. I'm not really extroverted like a lot of people would assume. Had a very average life growing up, just like a small, very shy girl in school. My teachers would always ask, do you have friends? What's your life like? Because I was always a lone ranger, but that's something that never changed in my life. I've always thrived in solitude, and I think that's where my strength comes from. I find a lot of peace just, sitting down in my own space and having that quiet. So yeah, I think that's pretty much a summary of me.
Wow. You know what? I just love what you said, and oh my gosh, I've got so many things I want to unpack.
Yeah.
Just from that, first of all, I want to go to Dad and Queen. And I know you said you grew up, you had quite an average life, but I just want to know, being a girl with all these boys and then your dad calling you Queen, and take me back to your childhood.
My child, I had a very happy childhood. Whenever I think of like being a small girl, it always just makes me smile. I don't think I'm one of those people who have like childhood traumas. I can't really say that that's true for myself. My dad and I have always had this close relationship, which I think is quite common with a lot of girls, that they grow up and they're closer to their dad. My mom and I had a good relationship, but it got stronger as I grew up, as I grew older, because I feel like maybe that now I can relate to her more. But in terms of like my attitude, my work ethic, I learned from my dad just, growing up. He used to take me to his workplace every now and again. Wow. So I was always fascinated by all the things that he did for me, but also just growing up in an environment where you have brothers around. I think brothers are really protective. So I kind of, had that protective circle around me. So I was never really a mischievous child. I took my time into a lot of things, dating included. I didn't date until like my late teens, almost into uni. Not that they stopped me, but I just, I had such a strong support system that I didn't feel the pressure to succumb to what everyone else was doing. I don't think I felt peer pressure until maybe way later in life. So that's one thing I'm really thankful for. And also like the thing that I grew up in a very intact family with my mom and my dad and my brothers, everyone just being in one household really gave me something to look forward to and look up to, like a good positive picture of what a family is. So that's also something that I'm really grateful for.
Wow, that's a beautiful foundation. And while I was just listening to you, I was just thinking, besides the fact that I know I'm like daddy's girl as well, but besides the fact that you're a daddy's girl and the queen of the house, what are some of the life lessons that your dad taught you that you remember from when you were young, that you've carried through and that have continued to carry you through into your adulthood and into your career?
Well, it's so ironic that you asked me that, because just a few days ago I was in this taxi ride and this taxi driver said, "You're on radio?" And I said, "Yes." And they said, "Wow, kudos to your parents." I said, "Why?" He's like, radio is so exposing and you have to thank your parents for giving you that confidence. My parents have always told me that it's okay to be yourself. And I think if it wasn't for that, I probably would have never made it as far as I have. So that's really one thing that I have carried throughout my entire life. As so much as I was a lone ranger, I was so comfortable with not having people around. So my mom taught me that you don't have to be in a place where you're not valued, even if it's friendships. Everything has to be reciprocal. If you're going to provide value to someone else, you have to feel the value from that person into your life as well. And that's one lesson that I've carried throughout. And my dad has always told me that you're worth it. Wow. So in all the platforms that I've been in, I've always tried to remember that. I haven't exactly implemented it in all the scenarios, but somehow I just end up remembering that my dad always used to tell me that you don't have to let anyone take advantage of you. And that's one thing that's really helped me, especially in my professional career, that sometimes, just being in the creative industry, someone come and have a low rate card for you, or they wanted to offer a freebie because, not everyone knows you or you're not a big brand according to them. But I'll just always say it's this or nothing. So I've been able to stand my ground on those two lessons.
Wow. And you know what I loved when you said worthy, that your dad said I'm worthy. Because I think a lot of people feel like they're not worthy and they lose a lot of self-confidence. And as they carry themselves through adulthood and whatever they're doing, they come in, but they don't fully come in because they feel like, who am I at the end of the day? And they question themselves. And that's what I love about what you just said, and I think a lot of parents need to do that. If anyone's watching, tell your kids that you are worthy. And I think it gives you a lot of, like you were saying, freedom and just that confidence.
Because I remember starting out in my career, like I said, people feed off external validation. We are looking at the numbers, how many people are liking your posts, how many people are listening to your radio show. It's almost always exclusively based on the external factors instead of your delivery. So at some point I had people questioning why I got a primetime slot. Like, this girl is just starting out. She shouldn't be on this time slot because, no one knows her. So you almost find yourself, questioning, is it really correct? Like, is it really true that I don't deserve to be on this spot? But like I said, I always just, kind of remember my dad telling me that you're worthy of being in the spaces that you're in. It's not by coincidence that, the manager or whoever is in charge chose to put you on that spot. So over time, I've kind of learned also to look for internal validation as opposed to external validation, which seems to be the norm now because, before you get a brand deal, the brand will come on your Instagram and see how many followers do you have. But at times it's not even about followers. It's about what type of content are you putting out even to that small number of audience. So I've always just told myself now that if it's something is worth my time and if it's mine, it will just eventually come to me. Yeah.
What I love about what you said, and I'm just resonating so much with what you're saying because I truly believe that our gifts, God gave us these gifts. And no matter, people will say, oh, you don't deserve to be there. But the Bible's clear. I knew you before you were formed in your mother's womb. So guess what? If I'm here, I'm meant to be here.
I'm here for good to stay.
Exactly. And whatever content I'm putting out, this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And that's why I always tell people that whatever you put out, you must be very intentional and it should be aligned to your value system. Because at the end of the day, you have to be able to continue that. And if you are not being true to yourself, along the way you'll tether and you'll get tired. But when you're just being you, everything else comes along, and then you'll be put in those rooms where people think you don't deserve to be in those rooms, but because of who you are and what you bring to the table, I think it's very...
the irony is no matter how good you are, someone somewhere will always believe that you don't deserve it. You could have 1 million followers and that one person in the room will still be like, why is she here? So you can never please everyone. I think that's just how we are as humans. We're insatiable. No matter how good or befitting you might be for that role, but someone will still feel like you're not enough or you're not deserving of that role. So yeah, you just need to stay grounded to who you are and continuously reminding yourself that you're worthy to be in those rooms. And this is also something that I didn't realize until adulthood, literally, that your circle defines who you are. I know this is so cliche, but my friends in the last year and a half have been my family. They've literally carried me through a lot. I've gone through one of the most traumatic experiences that I could ever go through. And if it weren't for my friends, I probably wouldn't be here.
Oh, shout out to friends.
Yeah.
I truly believe in friendship. I'm one of those people who really believes in the power of friendship, especially as adults. I think a lot of adults are lacking true friends, you know, and just the power of friendship, and what it takes you through. So I'm going to actually go there. We're going to talk about friends. We're going to unpack the issues as an adult that really traumatized you and where your friends came through. So I just want you to talk to me about, first of all, the power of those friends that you just talked about, the friendship, what they brought onto the table when you didn't have, and how they carried you through. If you're free to talk about it, and how they carried you through, and what you were going through, and how you are now at the end of all that.
Mm-hmm. So I'll start off with my friendships. I think friendship, the concept of friendship is one that really evolves as you grow older, but just as you're in kindergarten, it's all about playing games. The same as primary school, high school, you're probably learning to study. So there's a bit of more responsibilities on your friends and you start holding each other accountable. But for some time after high school, going into uni, I felt like I didn't need friends for some time. And, a lot of the things that I went through in university, I kind of carried the weight alone. And it wasn't until adulthood that I was intentional that, oh, wait, like I need friends. And it wasn't until I got into a relationship, and you know how we tell each other that, oh, your person is your bestie. Like, but what you don't realize in that moment is you're placing all of this pressure on one person. It's really important that when you're not together, they have their own life and you have your friends on the side. So I found myself in a situation where if it wasn't around, or if I wasn't talking to that person, then I'll be lonely. And, you know, I would like then start calling like, hey, where are you? And get pissed off whenever he wasn't around. So that's when I actually realized, like, oh my gosh, I don't have a life and I need people in my corner, someone who I can actually call on, you know, when I'm alone. But also that's when I realized that friendship is beyond having someone to call on or someone to gossip with or tell them about your day. My friends are people that I actually are able to celebrate with. In a lot of my friendships in the past years were people who I was scared to tell when I get a promotion or when I get called for an interview or if I get this role. Because, you know, we had this thing of, yeah, I'm happy for you, but not quite. So to me, it became a thing of, if someone can't celebrate with you, if they're there to cry with you, are they really a friend? You know, so yeah, because it gives envy and it gives jealousy vibes. It gives, yeah, you can do okay, but you can't do better than me. So that's when I started like looking at the qualities of a good friend. And now I can safely say I have friends who celebrate with me. I have people who I'm actually excited to call, sometimes even before I call my mom, you know, because they've become more than friends. They've become sisters and brothers. They're people who are willing to give me their last dollar because I'm a friend, you know. So over time, my definition of friends has really changed. And that's why I say that in the last year or so, I've had people around me who just kept lifting me because they became family, literally.
Give me a new definition of friends. When you define a friend.
When I define a friend, I would just say someone who is not of my bloodline, but who can feel every feeling that I have.
Wow. I love that.
Yeah. We can cry together. We can celebrate together. We can be excited together, you know. I want someone who doesn't feel an ounce of jealousy or envy. Someone who is genuine around me. If I fumble, I want someone who can tell me like, hey, be my conscience, like, Nicole, I know you can do better than this.
This is not you.
This is not you. You're better than this. So I'm just grateful that I've been able to meet such people in the last year and a half, and they've really helped me. And also it's really changed my perspective around friendship, because a lot of the times we tend to attach friendship to time. Like, the longer I've known this person, then they really must be my friend. You know, we've known each other for a decade, but I have people who I've known for way less time who have made a very big impact to my life. Yeah.
Tell me, you know, like you were saying that your friends have carried you through the last 1.5 years, and when you were going through your stuff, can you talk me through all the stuff you were going through and how you then got out?
Yeah. Okay. So I will just, where do I start? Because I feel like it's a really long story, and it's a story that I've never really told. I think this is the first platform that I'm actually speaking about it. But I just want to delve back into like high school, you know, because I grew up in a like proper family with people who always used to reassure me, you know, it was good at home. But the thing is, when you have your child, as soon as they leave the house, they're exposed to a whole lot of things. They're exposed to people who have different beliefs, and unfortunately, sometimes, you know, it's not all the things that are going to be positive or that are going to positively affect your child. So For me, that was the case. I always used to be a nerd in high school. I was kind of nerdy. So I got bullied a lot. I was subjected to a lot of bullying. So I reclined even more. Even I was already an introvert, but just being told,
How were they being bullying you?
Just, body shaming. I used to be like really skinny. Yeah. I wasn't curvy like the other girls in my school. I was quite a late bloomer. So, actually, I didn't reach puberty until like almost late teens. So that was a ridicule. And I had these crooked teeth, if you can tell. I have braces now. So those were things that were spoken to me like a lot. So over time, it's the same as how erosion works. It doesn't take effect on one day. The wind will blow on the stone one day, take just a small part of it, but like continuous years of rain, the sun and the wind blowing on the same stone will eventually start like tearing it apart. And I feel like that was also the experience that I went through, that over time, those things just started to ring in my head, and I kind of started believing in that, like, oh, maybe I'm not actually what my dad tells me or what my mom tells me at home. How come I'm only this person when I'm in the house, but, the world doesn't seem to see me in the same light? So for some time, I found solitude and comfort. Let me just say I found comfort in, like, my books. And when I finished uni, it was almost like my comfort thing was taken away, because now what else do I do? So as soon as I finished my final semester, I didn't wait until graduation. I offered to volunteer at EIFM. Luckily, they took me in. So it's almost like I put all of the focus on my work, and I just to, shut down those things, because it was the one thing that gave me a sense of worth. Like if I'm get on radio and I'm so good at this, then everyone is going to think Nicole is really who she is, because she can do this best. So for some time, I found like a coping mechanism in that. And I found myself that I didn't really have a lot of relationships. At that time, I was dating my boyfriend, and he was literally the only person I would spend the time with. I would call my mom once in a while because I was out of town and we were like cities apart. So if I wasn't with them, I was alone. So I think also that subjected me to a place where maybe the partners that I was with would see that, oh, this girl kind of relies on me when I do this to feel good about herself. So, which is never a good thing, actually, for all the girls that are watching this. It's okay to have someone who is like close to you, someone who understands you as a person, but for them to feel like they are your livelihoods is never a good thing, because you never know what they do with that. So I always found myself in situations where they always felt like, oh, she's always going to be here because I'm the only person that she has. Yeah.
Sure. Yeah. You know why that touches me a lot is because I'm just imagining the number of young girls that are out there and are feeling like they need validation from a partner.
Yeah.
And what it does to them, So I want you to take me what it does to you, and then when you then got into the relationship and things were going badly, then what happened?
What it does to you is it doesn't give you any confidence. It doesn't build your confidence. In fact, it erodes it, because you get this dopamine fix when you're with this person, but when they're away, you feel like your life is literally come to a stop.
So even when you're out there,
even when you're out there,
people are telling you you're doing well, you still don't. You
still feel like I need this person to validate that I'm actually worth of love, because your parents love you, your siblings love you, your friends maybe, but it's not the same. It doesn't give you that same dopamine fix. And it wasn't until later that I started looking at it and I actually saw that it's quite addictive as well. I think that's why a lot of girls find themselves with what we term narcissists now, because there's something that gives you an excitement feeling when you're around those people that when they're taken away, you kind of feel inadequate. But as long as you don't fix that internally, you will still keep attracting the same kind of person, just a different face,
body.
a different body,
a different body, a different face, a different name.
And as you might see, it might actually just be an escalation of the previous relationship. If this person was verbally abusive to you, the next one is going to be more verbally abusive or financially abusive or physically abusive, because you're getting emptier as you try to move on and get like a stronger dopamine fix. So I think that's almost the same as what happened to me. So in my first ever relationship, I got with this guy. He was just a few years older than me, 3 years older, which in my opinion at the time wasn't bad. It was a good age difference. But I think in terms of just the dating scene, it was a bit more accustomed and he knew how it went. And for me, I was completely new to the game. So just as the relationship started, it seemed, normal. It was protective, but I didn't see anything wrong with it until it got worse over time. So at first it would be the calls like, hey, where are you? What are you doing? And I'll just always say, hey, I'm home. So he got used to the version of me that was lonely, quote unquote. I'm always in the house because, I don't have a life outside of what he knows, outside of my family. So if I'm not with him, I'm in the house. So every time that I would leave the house, he would always be like, can I take you? And I always used to think, oh, what a nice boy. Like he wants to, he wants to come with me. And I didn't know that was him literally wanting to monitor every move. Like, what is she doing in my absence? And it got to a point where he would start demanding to see my phone, which in a relationship, depending on what type of relationship you're in and how close you are, you might be at a point where you're okay with, just going through your partner's phone. At that time, I really didn't see a problem with it because for starters, I had nothing to hide, But yeah, it got to a point where if he didn't find anything suspicious, which I never had, he would then start accusing me of having deleted chats and calls. Yeah, it doesn't make sense to a person who's probably watching and listening to this. Like, how do you go through your girlfriend's phone and there is no suspicious activity and you still go on to accuse her of having deleted chats? So for me, that was the starting point of what would be an abusive relationship. But because I didn't know anything outside of that, I stayed because he's my boyfriend, maybe boys do that because I've never been with anyone else outside of that. So I stayed for quite some time. I would go to uni. He would stay here in Harare because I was going for uni in Gweru. He would demand that I take his calls even during my lectures, Like, sorry, I could not take a call because I genuinely was in a lecture and he just wouldn't take it. So it wasn't until then that I decided that I don't think this is a healthy relationship, but it took that long for me to notice the bad behavior and the bad traits and the abusive traits. So I stayed for months.
Something that sixth sense never said anything to you, like something.
At the time, no.
Okay.
At the time, no. I guess maybe it was the inexperience and also just being scared because this is a person who shows potential abusive traits. Like they look like they could actually hurt you physically. I just got to a point where I would try by all means to avoid an altercation. So I found myself altering my behavior and who I was whenever I was going to interact with him just to avoid getting that far. But I noticed, but did I have the courage to actually leave or to pinpoint like, oh, hey, no, he's not supposed to be doing this to me. I'd be lying if I said that I ever thought of breaking up with him. It wasn't until he started demanding that I be there 24/7 when I had other things to do, especially with my education because I was working towards my first degree. So it wasn't until then that I started feeling like, wait, this guy sounds like he doesn't want me to do well in my personal life, and that should never be a good thing. Yeah. Yeah.
And what finally drove you to then break off this relationship?
I think for me, it was the distance could have helped. It was a really huge factor because our semesters were like 4 months long. So having been away from him for that long and still be functional, it kind of made me feel like, oh, wait, like I could actually do this life thing without him. But yeah, I feel if I went for uni in the same town as him, I probably would have still stayed and thought, maybe it's not so bad, or maybe I can still alter who I am and just make this person happy. I also have like culture to blame because, you know, a lot of the times, like especially high school years, you're constantly being told, oh, you're doing this for your future husband. In as much as the older generation doesn't mean bad, they're just trying to prepare you for life, for what life is. But they're also altering your view of the world and your role in it as the girl child, because at some point you feel like all you're doing is working towards becoming someone's wife.
Yeah.
So I always felt like if my mom would never tell me to make my bed. She'd always say, oh, you have to do this because, you know, you're going to do this for a future husband. And as much as she was trying to teach me basic life skills, I felt like I would have felt a bit better if she just told me, like, you're doing this for you yourself and not for someone else. Then maybe I would have stood out for myself, because at this point I was in this relationship thinking that if I marry this person, then I'm going to be his wife and I need to act accordingly to be able to become his wife. So it made me stay in a relationship that I should have never stayed in.
And then finally you decide, okay, this is done. This is it. How did he react? And then how did you...
He did not take it well. He drove to my parents' house.
You're kidding me.
He drove to my parents' house to tell them that I broke up with them and that I was making a mistake. I should have never broken up with them. Like, obviously, my mom called, you know, to find out what the issue was. And I just told her, like, I'm not comfortable with this person anymore. I don't feel safe around him anymore. Eventually, it weaned off. But for some time, he would, like, constantly call. You know, it's that calling off in the name of checking up on me. But you know for a fact that this person is just trying to stay in your life, really. So it was... it went on for quite a while of just him calling and sometimes just like showing up in my house because he knew where I stayed. And we went for some time without speaking. And I think like 4 or 5 years later, he resurfaced again, you know, this time with the marriage card.
Oh my God.
So I'm not sure if he came back because he felt I would fall for the marriage trap or what, but... Yeah, it was that. But anyway, like I was saying that like this thing continues. I found myself in another relationship that still treated me the same way, except maybe even worse. Yeah. Yeah.
Take me through that relationship, because what I'm trying to, because I think sometimes you probably noticed a pattern, but you didn't realize it was a pattern.
Yes.
And then you continued following for the falling, maybe for the same, like what you were saying, same kind of person, but just different body, different skin, different name. So take me through that relationship and how,
so
when you got out, how you were, you know.
So now, growing older and now me looking back into the whole trend, I realized that what I was doing wasn't actually like falling in love with this person, but it was rather trauma bonding. This is a very specific term. So it's literally two people who've probably gone through a traumatic experience and they feel like they're helping each other through it and they like each other. But what they're doing is they found a temporary fix. It's like putting a Band-Aid on an already broken glass. Everything else is still broken.
Which hasn't been healed underneath. And you're just trying to plaster it.
So you'd find that with trauma bonding, you know, the first few weeks or few months are okay. Until then you start living through the trauma. And that's when you start seeing that, oh my gosh, this is what I fell for. But again, because you're still going through the trauma and you still don't have a life outside of this relationship, you kind of stay because that's all you know. You know, so I found myself in another relationship like that. This was me in university. We were together. At first, it seemed like, you know, everything was fine. He'd taken me out of an abusive relationship. So I had this savior complex of, oh, this guy treated me so well and he, you know, saved me from a bad relationship. So surely he must be good. So we stayed together for some time. It seemed like a really serious relationship. He introduced me to his family. He knew my family. We could go back and forth the holidays and stuff. But it wasn't until, you know, those times when he gets angry. And you know, they always say that true character is reviewed when someone is angry. How they treat you when they're angry is who they really are. So he would bang doors, he would smash things, he would push me around, you know, kick me out, lock the door on me. All sorts of things like that. And he would always come back later. Oh, I'm sorry, I was angry.
How did you feel in those moments when he's banging doors and he's
And I've never seen it in my house, mind you. I grew up in a family that's very peaceful and prayerful. So it was, at first I would get really scared. Like, is he going to hit me? And I think the fact that he never physically hit me was quite a strategic thing for him, because yeah, I got angry, but I didn't hit you, you know, so you actually have nothing solid to say, oh, he did this to me. But, you know, verbal abuse is real.
Emotional abuse
is real. So everything that he says to you in those moments is real. You should never take anything for granted. Just because he banged the door on you doesn't mean he's good. The fact that he hasn't beat you yet, but he's already shown an abusive trait, is sign enough for you to leave. It is, because at that point it only gets worse. It doesn't get any better. And because it becomes a cycle now, and the thing about abusers is they also do this thing of alienating you. They will alienate you from everyone else. So you have no one to tell, like, hey, this is what I'm going through. You have no one to give you that confidence when you're lacking it. So all they do is talk down on you constantly. And
so what would he say, like, to you? What kind of things?
You're not who you think you are, just because you got your dream job, or I brought you here, or, you know, it was things like that. There was an instance when we went out for a date and I saw one of my male friends and I went to say hi to him and he drove off without me because I said hi to a male friend. And I brought you on this date and it's very disrespectful that you said hi to someone else. And then they make you feel like you're making the wrong decisions and I'm acting this way because of how you acted. Wow. So the tables are always turned on you. You're always the faulty one.
But narcissists do that. Yeah, and everything.
You're always the faulty one. So it was a continuous cycle of that. And then the next thing, you know, they're like acting all lovey-dovey because he's that compensatory behavior of, or I just did this really bad thing to her, so I'm going to make her believe that, you know, I'm a good guy. So I'm going to buy her flowers tomorrow and I'm going to take her out for lunch. So she doesn't leave. And what it does is, for you, if you're not very observant and you don't know the behavioral cycle, you'll believe it and you fall for it because it seems genuine at that time. He's treated you bad and the next morning he shows up with a bouquet of flowers and he's apologizing for his actions. So you take him back, obviously, because he said he's sorry.
And you stayed?
And you stay. And I stayed for years. And it was that vicious cycle.
What eventually made you leave?
So what made me leave was, like, I'm generally just a very growth-oriented person. So at that time, I think it was maybe God's intervention. Now that I look back in hindsight, I wanted to move out of this town that I was working at. And I said, I want to go back home. I want to be on a bigger station. I want to grow my career. And he was adamant on staying. So for some time, I put my dream on hold because my partner didn't want to move, and because also I was scared of, fear of the unknown is real. You start questioning, like, I've been with this person for close to 5 years now, what if he's the one? And because we have this concept of, if this guy does this to you, or if you've known each other for this long, then he must be the one. If you've met his family and they like you, so all of those things kept me grounded and kept me loyal to him, because I always used to wonder, what if I move from this relationship? Am I going to find someone else who's going to treat me the same way, who's going to be, maybe better? Maybe I'm not going to meet a family that loves me as much as his family does, someone that my mom would accept at home. What if this is really my person, And then you find yourself again wanting to place yourself in this box of being a woman and being a pleaser to your partner.
Justifying everything that's happening.
And you're making up excuses on his behalf. Or maybe if I act better, then he wouldn't be so angry. So you find yourself staying again in what is a very toxic cycle.
Sure. And then it went on for 5 years, more than 5 years.
It went on. So I found myself moving. Eventually I moved. I told him, hey, I got this opportunity on a national radio station. They called me to come in. So it's either you go with me or you stay. And he decided to stay. So I came back home. For like the first couple months, it was a long distance relationship until I eventually just grew out of it. That's how it ended. But now looking back, because after that, I found myself again in a more abusive relationship.
Oh my God.
So, because like I said, it's a cycle. As long as you haven't healed internally, you will just keep finding yourself in this. And I think narcissists have a way of identifying someone who has a really low self-esteem, because if you're not setting the boundaries at the start of the relationship, they'll keep testing your boundaries and keep testing your patience, like how far can I push, how far. And as long as you keep allowing them to go further and like degrade you even more, it gets more abusive. And because you're coming from a relationship that didn't really build up your confidence, whoever is coming next is going to erode you even more. So the scale just keeps going up. It really does. Yeah.
And now when you were in this relationship, so because what I've established is that you keep getting into these relationships and you're putting a Band-Aid on this deep wound and nothing happens and they're abusive. So what eventually made you realize that this is who I am and these are the people I'm attracting? What is it that drove to you to that? Say, okay, this is who I am. This is what they've done to me, and enough is enough. And
it wasn't until my last relationship that I started then self-reflecting, because I did a count. I was like, wait, this has just been a really continuous cycle, and there's one common denominator. None of these guys have actually built up my confidence, and just taking time off and saying, instead of jumping into the next relationship, what is it that I need to work on as an individual? But yeah, so my last relationship really pushed the limits.
How?
Yeah. You get in a relationship where this person has the audacity to be with you and still have the freedom to be with other people, but you can't do the same. You can't reprimand them. You can't even have a decent conversation with them. It got to a point where I was kind of not even allowed to say anything to him because, unopenga, literally. And because you're coming from this weak standpoint, you start questioning your sanity yourself. Like, am I really making sense or not? You start questioning your emotions even. Am I justified to be angry? for, angry at him for giving away my clothes to his side chick.
No!
Yeah.
Oh my God.
Someone calls you because you went to his place and you took a picture and they say, hey, I know that house. And you ask him and he laughs it off. It's that. So the last incident was actually what infuriated me so much that I internalized the pain, and I keep reminding myself that no, my dad has never hit me my entire life, and someone has the audacity to do that.
Oh my God.
Yeah. So it wasn't until then, and I remember the night that I went to make it a police case, and I got to the police station, and the lady that took my statement said, why? Why are you doing this? Look at you. You're a very beautiful young lady who has a full career ahead of her. If you told your mom, how do you think she would feel?
But why as well? Because you know why I'm saying that? Because I'm thinking of the amount of people out there who are having the same experience and are just sitting there, and struggling. Why did you stay? Why?
Again, is the emotional side. I think it wasn't until then that I got to understand why someone would be abused and still go back to their abuser, because that's all you know. You don't know anything else outside of that.
Okay, sure. And your life lessons from these?
Yeah, I think to all the young girls, or maybe sometimes even older women still go through this. You're worth it. You determine how you want people to treat you. If you allow someone to tread on you the first time, the second time, the third time, what you're saying to them is it's okay for you to do that. And the onus is on you to stop that abuse. There's no one who's coming to save you. Someone would go and have a restraining order and they'll still go back to that person who is abusing them because, again, that's all that you know. So break the cycle. And whenever you feel like you miss this person, you miss the dopamine fix again, do something for yourself. Grab a book, go for a walk, call that friend. Because again, this is where I saw the power of friendship. Because they stood up for me and they said, Nicole, you're better than this. You can do much better for yourself. And whenever I felt like, I miss this person, I would call a friend instead of calling him, because the urge will always be there. You'll always feel like, I need to speak to him because I miss him, or you'll see something or you'll hear a song that reminds you of that person. Those times are going to be there, but you need to supplement that feeling with something else that actually edifies you as a person. Yeah.
And how has the healing process been?
So far, I think this is the best feeling I've had since the whole experience, because for the first time, I actually feel comfortable being alone.
Falling in love with Nicole again.
Falling in love with me and knowing who I really am and actually seeing the worth that I bring.
The queen that
outside
you are.
Exactly. Because, the thing is, everyone who has ever followed me on my professional journey knows that I have this professionalism about me. I've never been really the person to tell my personal experiences, especially on a platform like this, but I feel this is a story that's worth telling. So people have always had this feeling of, she's got her life together, how does she do it? And I always knew how to put the A game face on without showing the hurt that I was going through inside. But now for the first time, I can actually sit in silence, because for some time I felt like I couldn't just be alone, but being in that space, feeling that pain allows you to remind yourself of where you're coming from and where you don't want to be again. So it was a very necessary process, sitting through therapy, because for some time I avoided therapy. It's a really painful process, but you need it if you're going to heal and take yourself seriously. And just, finding my hobbies again, going back to them, it's really helped me. And I think I'm finally in a space where I can pinpoint the toxic behaviors before it even escalates, just at the starting stages. So, yeah.
Wow. Sure, Nicole. I'm glad you're becoming the queen that you've always been, the lioness that your dad said you are. But so proud of you for recognizing and having the quality of friends around to be able to carry you through. So before we close, I just want to have a few fun questions, just for us, to just close off the show. So tell me, what are your favorite color? What's your favorite color and why?
Black.
Black. Why black?
I love black. I feel like black complements my skin tone really well. People tell me that I look great in orange and red, but I'm not really a bright color person. So black has always been my color. Yeah.
Oh, wow. And your favorite animal and why?
Favorite animal? That's a tough one. Because I have quite a number. But I think I'm going to say a dog.
Why a dog?
I will say a dog because dogs are really emotionally sensitive. So, and I found that, just being around a dog, you can play, they can cry with you if they feel any sort of like bad energy coming off of you. And, they're really loyal. I think I've learned one thing from a dog is loyalty.
Wow.
Yeah.
Wow. And what are you reading currently?
What am I reading? It's called, not me forgetting the title.
I do that a lot.
But it's 9 to 5. It's a career related book. I'm forgetting the actual. I think I'll send you the title so you insert it here.
Link, yeah.
It's by a Ghanaian lady. So she wrote about things about like your 9 to 5 job, how to grow in the corporate environment and stuff. So yeah, that's my current read right now.
What's a favorite movie that you watch, an all-time favorite movie that you watch?
All-time favorites. So, disclaimer, I'm not really a movie person. I studied film and theater arts. So now being an adult, I watch movies with an analytical eye.
Oh, you're not like us who just watch for...
Yes, but my all-time favorite is actually a series. It's not a movie. I like Game of Thrones. I loved it so much. For one reason, the unpredictability, and also how they take off the medieval era. I really like what they did with the series. Yeah.
Wow. And your favorite song?
Favorite song is actually a gospel song. It's called Zulu Worship by why am I forgetting names? Because I'm on this.
Sure, that's what
her name is Ntokozo Mbambo.
Mbambo.
She's a South African gospel musician. I've been listening to a lot of gospel. I've been on this like a spiritual evolution journey. So I've really just been limiting my consumption of like media to something that's actually self-edifying, like I was saying earlier. So yeah, that's my favorite song. It's a worship song. It's a song that admits a point of weakness and calls on God to be my strength. So that's been like my song of the season.
Oh, beautiful. That's so beautiful. If this was your last day on earth and you're about to go to the next realm and God says, okay, I'm taking you, Queen Nicole, we're going, what is the one thing that you'd say, you know what, God, I'm ready to go because I've done what?
I would say I'm ready to go because I have put smiles on people's faces.
Wow.
Yeah, I've been in a near-death experience. I think last year I got into an accident, and I always say this to my friends, like the one last moment that flashed in my eyes at that point of crushing was a picture of us like just posing for a picture and smiling. And the first thought that came into my head was, I'm ready to go because all the people that are around me know that I love them and I've said it to them all the time.
Wow.
So yeah, that's one thing I'm proud of. And I think everyone who is in my life can attest to that. Like I'm one person that will just like randomly call you to check up on you. And like I always tell you that I love you because I always say that you never know when the last day is, and I wanted to know that that's true. Yeah.
Wow, that is so powerful. And we've packed our bags. We have our passports. Where are we flying off to?
Funny you say that. We're planning a trip to Zanzibar next.
Yes. Oh, guys.
So next flight is to Zanzibar.
Oh,
yeah.
Beautiful. Nicole, you are such a queen.
Thank
And
you.
I'm just in awe that you're so young, but you've now, the amount of wisdom that you've gathered, and the amount of people who will learn from you. As we close off, I just want you to just say, I don't know, maybe you could be talking to one person, maybe you're talking to 10 people, but what is the one thing that you want, whether it's 10 people, to take away as we leave this show today?
So one thing that I want everyone to take away is the fact that nothing is coincidental in your life. It's either one coming to teach you a lesson, or two is you to impact someone's life. So it could be a painful experience. One thing that I've learned over time is that everything comes to pass, and it's still worth you going through that. And you impacting lives is not just you talking to people. Sometimes it's you just living your life. Someone is taking a leaf from how you walk, how you talk, how you do your work. So never take those two things for granted.
Oh, absolutely. And thank you. And I think, as you all heard, Queen Nicole said, we have to live our life as a walking impact. Whatever we're doing as we're going into the week, whatever you're doing, whatever you're saying, just be intentional. You don't know whose life you might change by what you say and how you act and just who you are. So as we go into the week, let's remember to love, and to put a smile on everyone's face. Thank you, everyone. Thank you for joining us, and I'll see you next week.